Welcome to Transport Line, the program that makes the difference. Coming to you live from the mega city of Lagos, state of aquatic splendor and the fifth largest economy in Africa. The intractable problem of Apapa traffic jam log in Lagos, southwest Nigeria, is comparable only Successive administrations have devised many solutions, but to no avail. The current relief effort is road rehabilitation and construction by flour mills, Dangote, and the Nigeria Ports Authority to ease the burden of port users and other commuters on Wharf Road. Now, the authorities have proposed closure of inward and outward Wharf Road as well as Ijora Bridge for repairs. While they are still consulting on the proposal, Transport Line considers it duty-bound to contribute its quota by dialoguing on how best the proposal can be handled to achieve the desired results. Against this background, I have with me here a freight forwarder who is also a transport analyst to look at the implications of this proposal and advise on relief options. Is no other person than Dr. Segun Musa. You are welcome, and thanks for coming to the program.
Thank you very much for having me here again.
Yeah, you had my prologue.
Yeah.
Now, what are the implications of the closure of inward and outward Wharf Road as well as Ijora Bridge for repairs by the federal government of Nigeria?
Yes, thank you very much. It may interest you to know that, like you've mentioned earlier on, the dialogue is going on and they are consulting stakeholders in trying to ensure that we are able to make sure that these activities will not put more hardship on businesses and other engagement within that confine. Be that as it may, these are part of what we've been talking about, the problems within the Apapa since the master plan of Apapa has been altered, and these are the results of when you alter a master plan of any port environment. Having said that, we have so many options. If we can actually reactivate our rail network, it could actually help in conveying more traffic out of that confine. Again, we are looking at using badges. I'm talking about movement of traffic as related to cargo now, not passenger, because it has various options. First and foremost, you need to know that it's going to create inconveniences for passengers, likewise traffic of movement and of businesses. And if we have to put all that into consideration, we have the alternative of using rail network for movement of traffic. We have the usage of badges from the concentrated area of Apapa to lighter terminals and other port areas where those cargo can actually be transferred on lorries to take it to the final destination. And to me, it's going to bring a lot of inconveniences. But notwithstanding the inconveniences we are experiencing now, if we can look for a final solution to it, I think it's a better option.
Now, in addition to what you have just said, we will recall that when the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport was to be shut down, the federal government authorities increased security on Abuja-Kaduna axis and reinforced rail services.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Should we not expect something like that, whereby we give quick rehabilitation of mile 2 Apapa Liverpool Greek Road, so that it will ease, it will bring some relief measures, and improve or reinforce sea or inland waterways, transportation, especially from CMS Apapa axis.
Like I did mention, definitely government is considering so many palliative measures that we actually ensure that the inconveniences are not too much on businesses and passengers movement. And part of what I may also suggest is that of the inland waterway you've suggested, the usage of barges, the rail networking, because definitely you have to move the traffic, the concentration of the traffic within the Apapa axis to area there is not much concentration, just to ensure that the pressure is not too much within that confine. But we also need to look at the major problem within that corridor. The major problem within that corridor is not just limited to only the bad roads. We also need to acknowledge the fact that the port itself is over congested.
Yeah.
As we speak today, the port accommodates factories and movement of traffic or establishing traffic of businesses and factories within the confine of Apapa. It's another way of choking the Apapa. So the Apapa is already fully choked.
Okay.
As we speak now, we have over 30% of the containers lying down in the ports, in the port presently, are empty containers. Over 40% of the containers lying down in the ports are overtime containers that are supposed to be evacuated from the Apapa ports to Ikorodu for either auction or further clearance. But they are still lying down inside Apapa ports. So we have only about 40% that are just normal imports. So for any traffic or any lorry to take empty container to offload inside the ports, presently government should see it as a threat to that environment. Alternatively, government should enforce and ensure that every shipping company have a kind of container terminals outside the ports. No empty containers should be taken to the port presently now.
Okay. Because
Even conventionally, you don't take empty containers to the port in daytime. You have your empty containers bay outside, terminals outside the port, far away from the port.
okay.
So it's only in the night when there is lesser traffic within the corridor of the port that you now start transferring those empty containers when vessels that will convey them are available.
Okay.
The empty containers can be transferred without loaded, and some can be transferred as exports. If you look at the ports concessionaires deliberately don't want to receive any empty containers again. And that's why most of the lorries that are even closer to the port cannot even gain access to the port. Even after repairing the port now, if all these are not put into consideration, ensuring the shipping companies have their own container terminals outside the port, ensuring that over time containers are evacuated from the port, definitely the problem of traffic congestion within that corridor will continue, because it is not only the bad road that led to the congestion on that route.
Okay. So what is the development on the gradual dismantling of farm tank?
Yeah, another problem we have is that of the farm tank. As we speak today, we have over 50 tank farms within that corridor. And normally, within any axis where you have seaports, you don't encourage tank farms. And that's the essence of pipeline transportation,
Okay.
which we've not been able to harness, we've not been able to take a good advantage of presently in Nigeria now. We have the issue of the lorries that are loading. It's just similar to that of the seaports. The tank farms have occupied the whole confine of the tank farm with tanks and all sorts of things. They don't have space for parking. Government should begin to look at it as it's a crime to have your lorries that are coming to your tank farm to load and they are occupying the government roads. If you want to have a tank farm, you must have enough parking space that can accommodate enough traffic that will load on that particular day. And if any of those traffic is actually allowed on the road, they must pay penalty. There must be a punitive measure. And that even extends to most of our roads. If you travel abroad, you hardly see people just parking discriminately on the roads. People are beginning to take advantage of the fact that it's a crime for you to just park on the road. Talk less of commercial vehicles parking on the roads. The more you stay on the roads, the more pressure you put on that road.
Yeah.
And because of the underlying factors of that roads, the pressure you are starting on that road, before you know it, when 2 or 3 vehicles, every vehicle move on that road, it will begin to create potholes. So it's a crime for you to even park on the road. Talk less of you have an established tank farm, you have an established port that are to give room for you to have a parking space while you are transacting business with them. You are not parking on the main road. It's a crime.
Okay.
And government should begin to look into that, either on the state roads, on the local government roads, and on federal roads. It's a crime to park on those roads.
So with respect to this tank farm, I think they have started the process of dismantling the tank farms. Is that so? Is that the situation? What's the development?
Yeah, I'm yet to start witnessing some of those tank farms that are to relocate. I'm yet to see them dismantling. And I think it's a welcome development. It will further help in ensuring, because when the issue of tank farm came up around 1993-94, I was privileged to be among the people that actually condemned it, because we knew it will lead to what we're experiencing now. When you have seaports, you have tank farm, and the two are actually accommodating traffic, heavy load traffic. Definitely, this was actually expected. And aside the danger effect and the threats within areas where you have the tank farm, we also need to consider the fact that the roads were not actually built to accommodate the kind of traffic that is passing through the roads now.
Okay.
Hence, the need for us to ensure all those tank farms are properly relocated out of that axis, at least to ease that pressure.
Now, talking about this closure of inward and outward Wharf Road as well as Ijora Bridge for repairs, what are the implications to the ease of doing business for shippers or freight forwarders as well as other commuters on that road?
Yeah, in as much as the government is trying to consult wide and ensure that there are palliative measures, we begin to see it already as a bitter pill, because as we speak now that the roads are not fully closed or locked for now, the kind of pain that we are passing through, it's more than enough. The closure is actually going to have a serious effect on businesses and movement of traffic. But presently, I'm not seeing any other better option than to ensure that there are palliative measures and there are other room for passage of passengers and cargo movements.
Okay.
Just like we mentioned the rail and the barges.
Okay, sometimes ago you mentioned pipelines, mode of, transportation as one of the options that could help in this congestion sort of. How and why are we not making use of it?
Unfortunately, in this part of the world, we are yet to begin to embrace conventional standard procedures. Ordinarily, when you have tankers are not meant to convey your petrol, your kerosene, your diesel, and other liquid cargo within interstate. Within the essence of tanker is to make a distribution where you don't have extension of pipeline. Just the same way we have haulage that are not actually meant to transport cargo from the ports to interstate and to other areas, but rather to distribute within the corridor where you don't have rail. And that's the area where we got it wrong in this country.
Okay.
The essence of using haulage is not for you to go and load inside the ports. No. The essence of haulage and trailers, trucks picking containers and cargo in the port is only for distribution where you don't have rail network. Rail network is meant to actually accommodate movement of containers, cargoes from the port to interstate to other corridors where you have network. While the trucks will pick it from there and do the distribution where there is no network for rail. That is normal intermodality transportation. The essence of haulage is only to complement the end point of rail system or rail transportation. It's not a core instrument to convey cargo from the ports. And that's why if you look at the master plan of Apapa, Apapa is well networked to the level that if you have some factories, they are also railed through Apapa down to those factories. So when you are picking containers, you are picking cargo from the port, it can be railed from the port down to the factory. That is the essence of the rail system.
Okay.
Why the essence of haulage is to complement the rail. Because it is only rail that can carry cargo at a cheaper cost and in large volume.
So what will pipeline do in this respect?
The pipeline is to convey the liquid cargo to all distributions where you have tank farm outside, not within. Why the tankers will now go pick from there. Like, take for instance, if you are using effective pipeline transportation, you can have your tank farm in Ibadan. You can have in any part where you don't have much concentration of traffic. The tankers will go there and now distribute from there to every other areas. That's the essence. Okay. But not just to pick from the ports direct and start distribution.
So if the pipeline is that important, why then are we not using it?
First and foremost, you also need to acknowledge the fact that we have effective pipeline networking in Nigeria here.
Okay.
But unfortunately, over time, government actually abandoned most of those pipelines. And some of them are already need repairs. Some of them need to be changed. And government is not actually ready to do that now, unless we are able to encourage government to begin to work into that and ensure that we are able to do maintenance, check the impact assessment of those pipelines, and ensure that they are in a good condition. And that's why you see all these vendors going here and there, because most of those pipelines has been abandoned for long and they are taking advantage of that. So government needs to ensure that we are able to do maintenance culture and ensure that they are very efficient to make a proper distribution.
Would that be too much on the part of government to do?
Not really, not really. And these are part of what we've been telling government, that government needs to privatize areas where they don't have competence. If government realize that maintenance of the pipeline is capital intensive and they cannot muzzle resources to manage it, it can be privatized. And we are actually appealing to government that privatizing the airport, concessioning the seaports, yes, it was already done, and trust me, today government is regretting doing that. If anybody in government says concessioning the port or privatizing the port does not have its own regret, it's a lie. Government is regretting that because it was already done.
Okay.
But notwithstanding, we've advised government that areas that needs to be privatized are areas that you don't have competence. Nigerian government do have more than enough capacity to manage our seaport as at the time it was privatized. The same problem we encountered or we had when we privatized when we liquidated Nigerian Airways, when we liquidated Nigerian National Shipping Line, and the rest is the same mistake we made when we privatized the port.
Okay.
Because number one, it is not the port, concessioning the port, that is a problem. The cost of building a port is lesser than the cost of building capacity for that port. We actually invested like times 1,000 of the money we used to build capacity. The cost of the port itself is like times 1,000. The cost of building capacity to manage and maintain the port is like times 1,000 of what we used to build those ports.
Okay.
So we had more than enough capacity. We had people that we've invested fortunes of Nigeria on them, both in Nigeria Airways, Nigeria National Shipping Line, MPA, and the rest of it. And at the end of the day, when we liquidated and we auctioned and we concessioned those ports and we privatized them, those capacity were actually jettisoned. And at the end of the day, it may interest you to know that each time we look at the maritime sector, we look at the aviation sector, we begin to crack our brain and start thinking, where did we get it wrong? A government just came without consulting anybody and start privatizing because they needed money. And they've made the greatest mistake. And for us to build such capacity now, I don't know how we're going to do it. I was at a function as a passage. I was at a function when I met with the minister, and the minister was actually talking about building maritime university. And some people say, look, why are we not building the university? And the minister said, yes, building the university is not a problem, but the capacity to train the student in the university is a problem. How many professors do we have that have the competence to train people in the university, in maritime university as we speak today? How many professors do we have that have the capacity to train students in the aviation university as we speak today? Because most of them that we spend so much money, we invested so much money, are now in foreign land working for foreign companies. Some of them are in private sector now. Some of them are even dead, because government refuse to acknowledge that while they are liquidating or they are privatizing those sectors, the capacity can also be used as consultancy, and it will generate foreign earnings for us. Look at China. China will bring people here to come and train our own people on minor things that we've passed through. Each time we look at all these developments, it brings tears close to our eyes that where did we get it wrong? And the problem is not actually that of the government. The problem is that of the private sector and the pressure groups. Okay. That when government formulate policies that will nosedive and destroy the sector, everybody will keep mute. Nobody will criticize it constructively and give a better alternative to government. And unfortunately, the problem between the private sector and the public sector has always been competition. The public sector is competing with the private sector, okay, forgetting that without the private sector, there can never be public sector. And that's areas that we actually need to look into.
Now, Doctor, let me ask you, what, in your own opinion, do you think are the best relief options, during the closure of Wharf Road and the Ijora Bridge, for repairs? The measures that will actually bring comfort to people, commuters, and the port users.
The best option for now, or immediately before the closure, is to take advantage of waterway transportation.
Okay.
And the rail transportation.
Okay.
We should by now we should start looking at what we have in our waterway transportation, deploying ferries, boats that will actually convey people, ensure that the waterway is safe, the navigational system is adequate, ensure that the barges, the berthing areas for the barges are in the proper position to transport containers to lighter terminals and other jetties where further transportation can be effected, and also ensure that we have effective gauge rest line that will actually allow more rail transportation within that corridor. Because presently, once the roads are locked, the alternative is other modes of transportation.
Yeah.
Because there's no other way you can move in and out. Ensure there's safety on the rail lines, ensure there's safety on the navigational waterway, and ensuring that we are able to deploy enough security departments, both on the railways and the waterway.
Okay, now we hear that some freight forwarders were even being prevented by terminal operators. Is that so?
Yes, I'm aware that there is a particular terminal. You see, when you don't have regulatory authority that can actually take action when they need to take action, is one of the major problems we have. A terminal like PTML that will tell you must have a custom license before you can access the port, knowing fully well that there's already a ministerial directive, executive directive, that once your name or your organization name has already been captured by Council for Regulation of Freight Forwarding Practice in Nigeria, which is a parastatal of government, once you are already captured, you can access any ports. Most of those concessionaires are actually living in the Stone Age. And by now, we should begin to let them know that if you go contrary to executive order, there must be a punitive measure. It's not all the time that we should be waiting that, okay, we are we. Just we are talking about containers being turned back from the port or not allowed inside the port because the shipping company is supposed to have their offloading bay terminals, empty containers outside the ports. But nobody has ever been able to question them why they don't have empty containers terminals outside the ports. And these are the problems we are facing. Until we begin to identify all these problems, and government is able to put a punitive measure there must be a deterrent.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Segun Musa. I want to appreciate you. I want to express our appreciation to you for coming onto the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, viewers, that's the program today. Till next week, please stay out of trouble and strive towards a greater Nigeria. It shall be well with our country, Nigeria. God bless Nigeria. Have a wonderful time and see you next week. Bye for now.